Yogi Berra said it best. Baseball is 90% mental, and the other half is physical. Let's talk about it. Folks, welcome to the Baseball Brewhaha. We're here chatting about life and baseball. Started us with a Yogi Berra quote about the mentality and the mental side of baseball. If you are paying attention to math, 90% plus half equals more than 100%. So before we really dive into the topic here, Adam, do you have any initial thoughts?
It's an emphasis on just how much of the game is mental.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Yogi Berra stood. And if you ask most players, you talk to coaches, the mental aspect of baseball is so important. And, and then that other 50%, based on the math, is I would even say it's still, even though it's sort of physical, it still lives largely in the mental realm because it's about creating habits of mind, habits of doing. And you've got to have the right mindset to achieve great things as a baseball player.
Yeah, absolutely. So why are we talking about this today? So this could go a ton of directions, which we may get to it in various points here. But here's where I wanted to focus things. We've been having a lot of conversations recently in our household. And something that I struggle with a lot is, at various times, I'll just say that at various times is the negative self-talk and about life. I keep messing this up. I keep blowing it with that. I'm not doing this right. I should be better at that. Like, there's a number of things that we can get into the negative self-talk. And we've had some of those conversations floating around our house, and we're working through it. And it can, how we think about life, how we think about ourselves, has a significant impact on what we do, how we just our outlook on life, how we interact with our community. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. And how does that relate to what can we learn from baseball? And so, Adam and I were talking about this beforehand. It's so big that sometimes it feels like, where do you start? So, Adam, I gave us a little bit of a nudge into a general direction. What do you hear coming out of my mouth?
You're having some recurring themes within this self-talk. There's recurrence happening around something from, especially from the parenting lens. Like, you can connect this a bit to your own life, but you're trying to instill a mindset or talk with your kids about a certain mindset. And part of that is like, the work that you have to do. Part of that is, as they're growing up, their ability to sort of develop complex thoughts about who am I and what's important and what do I think about myself. It's still just emerging. So, maybe we should just jump right in to what is a mindset conversation you're having with the kids.
Yeah, well, mindset is like we'll get in these modes where we'll have some kind of conflict. And one of the things that is coming up is like, well, I just always do this. I always mess it up. I'm I'm just this way. And it's a negative. It's never like we don't have a conversation about like I'm just a happy person. I'm always happy. It's like it's on the negative bent. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
so it's that type of a thing that creeps in. It is on the kid's side. I try not to like. It's gotten better for me over the years, I think, but I still go in modes in myself too. But yeah, but that's been the thing. It's kind of the negative. Like I'm just this way. I'm just mean or bad or that's just who I am. And so that's really kind of the crux of what we're wrestling through.
And would you say when up in the conversation, is it used as a way to sort of deflect a little bit, or would you say it's like uh, it's sort of like a feel bad, like a poor me, I'm horrible, like that kind
Mhm.
of a thing, or something
Um,
else?
that's a really good question, Adam. And I don't know if I can 100% answer it because, as you know, with when you're having conversations with kids, they don't all they're learning the tools of how to articulate what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And so you're kind of having to sort of decode a mystery sometimes. And so it does feel a bit like um, it's some of that like deflection or kind of like I I can't there can't be consequences for my action because I'm just this way. I can't help it. And it sort of is a bit like um, there can be a little bit of that. And um, but I think there's also like sort of this genuine kind of like angst and frustration with there's like a blending of the two. There's like an angst.
Hmm.
One of the conversations that my wife and I have been having is um, I don't know if we have time to unpack this whole thing, but is around like purpose, around like getting to a point where in a kid's life where maybe there's like kind of a need to take on responsibility, like a healthy need. And like if it's not there, then, and I feel this in my own life where I go to work and I come home and it's kind of like I'm floating a little bit and I get a little bored, a little angsty, and so kind of wondering a little bit. That's in the mix too of like boredom, looking for something more. Got to get a adrenaline rush somewhere, Uh, so those
Like
that's
you sense that from you're sensing that from the kids
that's we're trying
when
to
they're saying this thing. Is that what you're saying?
yeah it's sort of like trying to decipher the motivation behind
Mm.
sorry, behind the actions that then lead to the conversation. So it's kind of like it's sort of there's the extra layers. It's like the conversation is one piece, but as if any parents out there, often these tend not to happen in a vacuum. There tends to be there was a relational conflict. There could have been a bully situation. There could be any number of things of why um, a kid could be expressing negative, having that negative self talk, and from adults too. And so we're trying to kind of piece it together with what we're observing. So, and we're some of it, you're doing your best to guess and to kind of piece it together.
Yeah, you just like you get the like emotion fragments. It's like you get the weird sentence here, you get the crying over there, you get the the
Hmm.
shouting fit over there, you get the withdrawal over here, and then you're trying to make sense of the madness.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, and then you have the, um, just the mentality, the, you know, identity piece. I don't know how to articulate it that well. It's a tough situation, tough process. Helping another human through their emotions, child or adult, is crazy town if you think about it. I mean, I'm thankful there's ton. I mean, sometimes just talking about it, having friends talk about it, really helps a lot. But if you really think about it, how complex we are, the, the relationships and all the different things we have going on, it's amazing that we can even have a halfway coherent conversation about it.
Yeah, well, and sometimes there's coherence in the conversation, but it still doesn't like match the experience you're having or what
Yes.
like
Mm-hmm.
there can
Yeah.
there can be there can be like a disconnect between what you're experiencing and what you think is happening. Like, I
Mm.
think I'm feeling this way for this reason, and it's actually like something else. Something happened earlier that day. It
Yeah.
activated some
Mm.
like memory from long ago,
Yeah.
and so yeah, you're exactly right. Like this whole what we say about ourselves, the stories we tell in the moment, or and also in the bigger picture of like who I am and what I love and what makes me me. Um, it gets like it swims in the soup of life.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that we've been, I got on that, um, is that we've really tried to, just articulate, like, be in encouragement to our kids of, um, this is how we see you. Okay. And like, so when it's kind of like, well, I'm just this kind of person and it's a negative expression, like trying to articulate, like, I don't want to deny the fact that you feel those feelings and that we do have those parts, like we do make mistakes and we sometimes are mean to people or we whatever like those things do happen. um, but if I were to ask other people how they describe you, like that's not the characteristic of how they would describe you, and we've really and not certainly how not we would not describe you that way. And so trying to articulate that, and sometimes it feels like, boy, just you're hoping it gets getting through somewhere.
So you spend quite a bit of time and energy encouraging, and you want to convey positive messages that you're hoping they internalize and like reflect back to themselves. And you know, yes, it does make it in there. And also, they're growing kids, and so they're trying to figure out who they are. And like a couple of your kids are, I mean, three of your kids are sort of like below the age where they really have a sense of like, I am my own person.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
their brain there yet where they, you know what, I value this, and so I'm going to make this decision based on this value. Like they're just not
Mm-hmm.
like they don't have that brain capacity. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we layer that in. As parents, we layer that in, and the kids pick up on and figure out what do they value based on what's happening around them and the messages they're receiving. And uh,
Mm-hmm.
um so this the self-talk, as you mentioned, is like uh somewhat parent directed early on. And that's like you said, you hope they pick it up. Part of it's temperament. Part of it is like, all kinds of things, other factors that you can't control. So, so you're looking at, I mean, part of me wonders too, is like some of your challenge with it then turn into like self-talk to yourself about parenting.
Yeah. Yes. I struggle with that because I tend, one of my weaknesses is I tend to focus on the negative things. If I make a mistake, I spend a lot more time thinking about the fact that I made that mistake. Whereas if I did a positive thing, um, you know, I maybe downplay that in the sense of like, well, that was what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be a not messing up dad. and so maybe it's, yeah, I would agree with you in that um, regard. And so I was having this thought too, like, I mean, we'll circle back on the parent side, but I remember when we were in high school, I believe it was our senior year, might have been our junior year. We had the advantage of, or the delight of playing in a couple state championships and making that run. And I remember one time I came home from practice one day. I was our starting point guard, and and I said to my dad, I said, "Dad, I feel like I lost my game," and like I couldn't. I just felt like I couldn't do. I don't know why. I just had a feeling like I lost my game. Dad goes, and I'm not trying to be like mean or something, but he went and talked to Coach Coles, and he said that, and Coach Coles like laughed, and it was in one sense it was like, well, how disrespectful, but at the same time, like, his perspective was like, what is he even talking about? Like, he's an integral part of our team. He has not lost his game. Like, and so, um, and we worked it out, and then I got my confidence back, and we went on to win a state championship. And, um, and so it was interesting, kind of the way that unfolded, um, and that kind of thing. But, uh, that kind of gives me, it makes me think about the um, how I viewed myself in that moment. Who knows? It could have been because my nutrition was bad that day, and I kind of felt tired, and I made one bad play, and suddenly my game's gone. It's like, and so thinking about that in terms of, I was a teenager at that time, so different, you know, complexities than younger kids, but still thinking about that as well, and how that ties in.
And how we interpret and can likely misinterpret what's actually happening. Like, there's probably layers of things going on at that moment for you. The pressure of a state tournament, you're the point guard, you maybe had a bad practice, you're not feeling your best, you're tired, you're whatever else. Who knows? Maybe you had a bad test that day that you don't, remember now, or
Right.
something,
Mm-hmm.
and you like perhaps misattribute your feeling about basketball, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you put it on basketball rather than something else that is perhaps more accurate. But even if it was sort of a reflection of how you're feeling about basketball, we can have, like, we're allowed to have those feelings um, about how we're doing and reflect on that. That there's nothing there's nothing wrong with that. Um, it becomes unhealthy and unhelpful when it doesn't match, like what you're saying with the kids. It doesn't match what's true.
Mm-hmm.
You were like you sitting there in a pool and saying I'm the worst ever because I'm the meanest person ever, and that's just who I am. Well, that's just incorrect. There's no evidence of that in your life.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's the challenge of that communication and trying to help them through that and encourage them in that way. It's certainly, we talk about baseball and life on this. We're talking a little bit about my experience playing high school basketball, um, but when I think about baseball, like it's this kind of stuff that makes baseball really uniquely challenging in life. And so when you watch your favorite players go through a struggle, you're like, well, why can't you just hit the ball? And first of all, it's exceedingly difficult, and it's challenging because you don't want to. I don't want to sit here and say like it's not as difficult mentally in football or basketball or whatever. Um, it's just different, and some of that is that you have less control over the outcomes in baseball than you do over like just a small example. If you shoot a basketball and you miss, well, generally you're pretty much in control of the shot. There can be distracting things, but generally you're 100% in control of the shot. Same with like throwing a pass as a quarterback. Again, there's distracting things, there's multiple variables, but you direct where the ball is thrown to. Um, when you're playing baseball, swinging a bat, you do have some control over the throwing action, but swinging a bat, you kind of don't really have control where the ball goes, and in relation to where the defense is. Like, so there's some factors that are out of your control, and the fact that it's uniquely challenging. It's a uniquely challenging thing to hit a round ball with a round bat and to make it do something. And so um, it's a challenging in such a different way, and um, it's hard to like it's basically like this thing that we're talking about is like you get wrapped around the axle with your thoughts, and you're like, how do I get out of it? And it's the same thing with baseball. Like you get wrapped around the axle with your thoughts about hitting, or why can't I do this or that? Like the yips in throwing. Like, I mean, it's just I've been fortunate. I didn't go through the yips, but man, that's tough. So it this kind of thing, it just again it reminds me, sports in general, but like baseball in particular for me just really hits home, and it's a place for me to go back and say, okay, like as a grounding thing of like how difficult is baseball mentally, and kind of walk through it. Like you have to be patient. You have to be really patient because sometimes the results take some time to work themselves out.
And it's averages over time.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like there's so in baseball in particular, there's so many at bats, so many games. It's like you can go 0 for 12 and still hit 350 easily.
Yeah.
You have
Hmm.
a stretch that you go 9 for 12. It's like um it's like it's hard to be patient through those times and to like stick with the process. And I remember listening to um, a, a professional baseball player, I forget who it was now, but talk about how um, he was struggling and a new coach came into the system, and he was asking the coach, like, should I change my swing, should I tweak whatever? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, you are an established professional baseball player, and you did that by doing all the things that you've done all of your life for 35 years, 30 years, whatever it is that you've been doing. No, you do not need to change your swing or change your stance or whatever. It's mostly in your mind. It's confidence. It's, your mental approach to the game, and maybe
Mhm.
how you're breaking down pitches, or how you're seeing pitches, or maybe your reaction time's a little slower. So you got to adjust in that way a little bit. But um, the skill set, the physical skill set, isn't where the issue lies. It's deeper than that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, it's, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, I think, when you're talking about the average thing, it just made me think about that, like, because this is something that has been more recent. We've had a lot of conversations about it in the last, couple weeks. Um and it hasn't necessarily come up a lot, and that doesn't mean it wasn't kind of percolating and bubbling in different ways in the past, um but I think when you're in it, you're like, kind of like you're in a slump. It's like, it's never like, you get in this thing of like, I'm never going to get a hit ever again, or we're never going to get past through this thing. It just feels like it's never going to end. And being it's like following the process, being disciplined, caring for the people around you, um, being positive, taking care of yourself, doing all the things that you know to do. um, you know that you have to trust that it is going to to turn.
Yeah. Yeah, and that they'll mature, that they'll grow into themselves. They'll be able to take on the skills and do the things for themselves that you would hope they would do as they mature.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for hanging with us for fun, enlightening, learning things as we go conversation here. And we certainly, in case you can't tell, have not exhausted this topic or anything near it, near exhausting the topic. But we love to chat about it and learn things. So we'll be back at it next week with something else to talk about. What's going on in our life? We thank you all for hanging with us.